Hi everyone, this is Cody Bowles and I'm reporting on the Chapter 7 assignment for ED 854 regards to communication, Chapter 7. I'm going to be taking a look at the importance of communication and a recent communication I had with a student here the last couple of days and how it applies to the communication process, as well as looking at a most recent staff meeting we had and some of the non-verbal versus verbal types of communication that I witnessed during that meeting. First off, in regards to communication, Lunenburg and Ornstein basically classify communication as the lifeblood of every school organization and is the process that links the individual to the group organization. Basically, no matter if it's in the school or if it's any day-to-day type of job, communication anywhere is extremely important. Communication is what a lot of our society is built on, and we have to be able to communicate with each other, whether it's through phone conversations, email, face-to-face conversation, whatever it may be. We have to be able to communicate, and that becomes extremely important for us to succeed. So as an administrator, it is our job to plan, to organize, to coordinate activities, to review decisions on a day-to-day basis. And this cannot be done effectively without proper communication. And we have to keep those lines of communication open. Otherwise, many times organizations struggle and in the end may not be very successful. So essentially, the communication process is all about the exchange of information between the sender and the receiver. And so applying the communication process, I recently had a pretty interesting conversation with a senior student. He's a student that I've had coached for the last 4 years. Had him in class back when he was in junior high. Just a really enjoyable kid. And basically, we were just, I liked every once in a while, I just happened to be subbing in a study hall, and he happened to be in there. And we just kind of got into conversation about some of his future endeavors, one of which was college and a career choice. And we had a very interesting conversation in regards to some of these things. Number one part of the communication process is develop an idea, and basically this was presented, to me in regards to the student wanting to talk about his future and asking questions about possible career paths and narrowing down some college choices. So that was the idea was kind of brought to the table that way. The second part is to encode the message, and basically as the receiver, I was able to encode the message because obviously through the students' questions and comments about college and careers, I was able to understand that he was having basically some anxiety about, possibly what is coming down the road. And so be able to encode that by his asking questions was pretty easy to do. Number three is basically able to transmit the message. And basically, in regards to this, whether it's essentially means it's the conversation face-to-face, is over the phone, is an email, whatever it is. In this case, this conversation was a face-to-face conversation, which, in my opinion, a lot of times that type of interaction is some of the best ways to go because it takes a lot of different scenarios and situations. We don't always get tone in those things through emails and those types of things. So face-to-face conversation in this regard is always, I think, a good way to go, and this conversation was. Number four, is receive. And as the receiver, my job is to basically become a good listener, and so I try throughout the conversation, at least the beginning parts, to basically be attentive to his concerns, to his various thoughts about his future schooling and his careers, and that is something, especially as a teacher to a student, that is basically our job. Is if they come to us with an issue, it's our job as the receiver to listen attentively with those sorts of things. Number five, and the fifth part of the process, is to decode. So as I was talking about his concerns, I was able to decode that he is looking for direction in regards to narrowing his different college choices, and basically trying to narrow down, what are his best abilities, and that would maybe suit him for a future profession. He has lots of concerns as he was going through and discussing some of these things about what his strong suits are, and we just went through and talked about some of those concerns and basically what direction does he want to go in. And as I basically found out, there's still a lot of questions to be answered, but it was my job to try to decode the message and try to get him in more of a concise type of direction in this conversation. The sixth part of any type of communication is to accept the message. So I accepted the message because I feel as a teacher to a student and someone I've had and coached and had in class, I'm in a place of leadership, and so it's my responsibility to basically go through, and through my own experiences, I try to guide and try to give them some insight onto basically the direction I went in choosing a career, the direction I went in narrowing down college choices and those types of things. My job is to accept the message and get him or guide him in the right direction. That's what I really try to do throughout the conversation. The seventh part is to use part of the conversation here. So I felt at the time to use the information provided, take it in, and eventually give feedback. So, in that part of the conversation, every communication, no matter what it may be, in this regards, I took in what the student was telling me. I was trying to decipher some different things, come up with questions and ways to guide, or just give better direction and some other insights. And my job was eventually, as I talked about earlier, to give feedback to that student. And the last part is feedback, and this is one of the most important things. Throughout the whole conversation, I'm taking in, whether I'm being a listener, decoding the message, accepting it, using it. The last part is one of the most important things. As a student or someone that is talking with you, they're basically looking at me as a person to try to give them direction. That is my job in this regard, and that's what I wanted to do in that place of leadership. So I was able to provide feedback to the sender by a face-to-face conversation. I was able to give him my feedback and ideas as to important college aspects to be looking for, as well as strengths he has that might help him narrow down a career path. It's my job to basically, as I've coached him, I've had him in class, it's my job to basically go through and say, hey, this is what I see from you, this is where, are you interested in this? Is this something that you like to do? What are your strengths that might help us? In regards to college choices, he was concerned about not having a real clear idea. I gave him some feedback on my, narrowing down a choice. What was I looking for in a college that could possibly, hopefully help him narrow some things out. So that whole communication process, by the time we got to the feedback, I think, at least I hope I did, gave him some good insights, and hopefully he took something away from the conversation that will in turn benefit. And anytime you have communication, you hope that you come out on the end where they're benefiting one way, and hopefully you've gained something in the conversation, in the communication process. Second part of the assignment we're looking at is looking at a recent teacher meeting or staff development, whatever it may be, and breaking down some nonverbal interactions. One thing with nonverbal is that a lot of times it's not always through our words, it's more actions about how we're feeling or what we're thinking, and it's very evident a lot of times in face-to-face teacher meetings or staff developments, what teachers are really thinking, and they're not saying it, what are they really thinking. So we recently had a staff development. Right now our high school is leaning towards going one-to-one here in the very near future, maybe next year even. And so our biggest thing right now is trying to implement technology in our classrooms and basically get to the fact where all of us are on the same page. We're trying to get some continuity in systems, and so our meeting in the high school area was basically focused on technology, the use of it, to get some feedback from teachers on implementation of technology thus far. And basically throughout the meeting I found some interesting nonverbal communication happening throughout most of the time. So, and it seems like at our school technology has always been, as I'm sure it is in a lot of schools, but technology has always been a kind of a hot button topic. So we got some teachers that are on board, typically right away. Some teachers, whether it be the subject matter or they just don't feel technology is going to be useful in their classroom, you can tell right away that they really want no part of it. So there's kind of a mixed bag of things when it comes down to it. So basically our principal led the meeting. He was very formal. He was direct when discussing our goals, technology, what he wants to see in connection with our technology director. As far as nonverbal behavior I witnessed, the kinesthetics portion, basically most teachers were sitting up straight. I saw many teachers look as if they were at times uninterested, some arms folded, which basically that tells me that some of them are not really wanting to hear the message or any part of that. They're not really open to that type of communication. I also noticed some teachers just looking tired. It was Friday. It's been a long week. We've had a lot of stuff going on. And then a Friday afternoon, they just look kind of dejected at that point. So there could be multiple things happening there. I think some teachers uninterested in their type of posture and those things. Some teachers are just tired, which is understandable. We all get that way as well. Most teachers were giving good eye contact, showing attentiveness. The principal also did a very good job of that throughout the meeting, showing us that he's portraying a message and really wants to make it seem very, very important. Number two part of any nonverbal communication is the proxemics, which basically the staff was seated at tables, which refers to how the staff is seated. We were seated at tables with a few other teachers. A lot of times when it comes to our meetings, there's obviously no set seating arrangement or anything like that, but a lot of times who teachers feel most comfortable with, they're going to sit with. And so there's a lot of social zones going on there. But the biggest thing is that they feel comfortable, they're ready to communicate with each other. So anytime we have a little discussion of any type, most teachers are pretty willing to communicate with each other because they feel pretty comfortable with the people that they're sitting next to. That's very common in most of our staff developments or in teacher meetings in this case. The third part of nonverbal is the paralanguage, which basically the principal through the meeting used good volume, used good pitch. He was very confident in his communication throughout most of it. He demonstrated enthusiasm for the matter. He's pretty passionate about technology as well, ready to go one-to-one, trying to do anything he can to help our students be successful, whether it's using technology or other things. And so this tool, he's very, very, in regards to technology, he's very passionate about, and I felt that through most of the communication and nonverbal actions through most of it. Number 4 is the chronemics, which basically the principal was there before everyone. He was ready to go. He had his presentation ready. For the most part, he was very formal, as I talked about earlier. He demonstrated a lot of ambition, direction with the communication. He was giving us very clear cues and things throughout most of his presentation and throughout the meeting. He basically made us feel as if we could ask questions. It was open. It was formal, but yet it was open. We could ask questions. Also, most of our staff, I think, felt through his nonverbal cues, that we could contribute to the conversation throughout the time. So a lot of our teachers, it wasn't necessarily a case where it was any type of threatening communication. It was more just open-ended questions and comments about how they really feel with communication and where it fits with our classrooms. So overall, with those 4 parts, I felt like most of the nonverbal action I saw, there were some mixed bags of things, but for the most part, the nonverbal communication, whether from staff or our principal, was pretty positive. You're always going to have those teachers and those people in meetings that are going to display things where they just rather be somewhere else, or they really seem uninterested. I mentioned they might be tired, other things going on, you don't know. But there was always a mixed bag of nonverbal cues. So I felt like throughout the meeting, the nonverbal behavior displayed by staff or the principal was consistent with the verbal behavior or what was being spoken. Although the principal was leading through nonverbal actions, the staff felt like verbally we could communicate and contribute to the conversation, express our concerns or thoughts. I never felt it was a time where it was just going to be him talking. It felt like he had to be overpowering, showing his power at times. It was more of an open, which most of the time our principal does a pretty good job with, making sure our staff feels as if they can contribute at all times. So that is basically what I have for this week's assignment in regards to communication. I said it's extremely important. We talk about it a lot on a day-to-day basis in our school, and the importance of keeping the lines of communication open, something also I stress with our students every single day, because without good communication, a lot of things aren't successful. So that is what I have for now. I hope everyone has a really good rest of their week.